on with the checkup, Ricky Flex. Spider-Man 4. Tom Holland and Zendaya are both working on new deals to return for Spider-Man 4. We also have a director. Destin Daniel Cretton will be in the director's chair. Director of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Chris McKenna and Eric Summers, who wrote the previous 3 Spider-Man films within the MCU, are returning to write this script. We have filming eyed to begin in early 2025. The source is deadline for this report. A lot of different directions we can go, Ricky Flex. We're going to start off with the guy in the chair, the man in the chair, and it's not Ned Leeds. Is Destin Daniel Cretton the right pick as director?
All right, before I go on a rant here, I just want to clear before I sound like an idiot. Was he supposed to direct Kang Dynasty?
Yes, he was, Ricky Flex.
Okay, so here we go. This guy's clearly a good action director. I think the main takeaway from Shang-Chi is some really great action sequences. And Spider-Man, we've seen Tom Holland, particularly like in Far From Home, and then in No Way Home with the Green Goblin. Far From Home, when he actually gets his Spidey senses, he is like doing some great action sequences there, right? Spider-Man, that is. Destin Daniel Cretton, I think, will elevate that even to another level. So I'd like it from that perspective. And I think moving on from that, this is Marvel doing, hey, we're staying in the family. And we kind of owe you because you were owed an Avengers movie and you didn't get it. So what's next best? We're going to give you our best hero, and that's Spider-Man. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. Like, is that fair to say? Because again, like John Watts, he did Cop Car with Kevin Bacon. Obviously, like that's like totally different than superhero. But besides that, he didn't really do a lot, specifically like anything that relates to action or superheroes really. But he somehow gets Spider-Man. So like probably like would have been up in arms at that. People were probably up in arms about that back when he got picked to do Homecoming. So for here, it's like clearly there's a clear direction here. He's in the Marvel family. It makes sense. But it's like, could we have gone anyone better? Maybe outside Marvel family? Maybe someone that has done a better movie than Shang-Chi? And it's someone that, like, again, that era of the MCU has been, dare I say, like, or to be nice about it, okay. So pick someone that hasn't been a part of that, fresh perspective, fresh ideas, something away from the previous trilogy to do something new. I think that's what I would have done, especially with the same cast. I don't know.
Destin Daniel Cretton is a very interesting choice. And I was going to ask you, like it, love it, or hate it. I'm in the like it category. I don't think this is a terrible decision because this guy was being handed the keys to an Avenger movie. This guy clearly has talent. You saw the fight sequences of Shang-Chi. The first 2 acts of Shang-Chi were serviceable. The third act totally falls apart and it goes haywire. But when I watched that movie, I'm like, okay, there's something here with this director. I thought it was a bold choice to all of a sudden give him the keys to all these different characters at his disposal. It's hard with the Marvel Cinematic Universe because you're set within a world. You want someone that knows that world, and especially if you're an Avenger movie director, that someone that understands how these different characters act and they know where they lie in that world. So, Destin Daniel Cretton, I don't think is a bad pick to direct another Marvel movie. I also don't know if there would be a choice I would have that's not Destin Daniel Cretton, because to me, Spider-Man is bigger than whatever director they would choose.
Granted.
It's very similar to it's actually very different than we want Christopher Nolan to do a James Bond movie. We want David Fincher to do a Batman movie. Those are attainable. But with Spider-Man now in the MCU, it's like a director I would want to see is not someone that will do it. Like, I would love to see Steven Spielberg do a Spider-Man movie. Honestly, I would. I would love to see James Cameron be able to return and do a Spider-Man movie because that's a high-level director, high-level action director taking on a high-level character. But you can't do it because it's within the MCU. I'm happy this wasn't Justin Lin. I would have been a little bit saddened if this was Justin Lin because I don't love the Fast and Furious movies. I don't love their direction. But these directors, there was no one that was going to really satisfy me. And I think Shang-Chi, that movie was okay. It wasn't the worst. It wasn't out of this mediocrity that has been the latest phase in the MCU. I'm okay with this. And I also was thinking, Ricky Flex, Destin Daniel Cretton will not be doing Shang-Chi 2. And I think that is another ramification of this. And I think that means it's probably on the back burner. When you think about recent Marvel, you think about John Watts was stuck with Spider-Man for 3 movies. You think of Ryan Coogler stuck with Black Panther for 2 movies. Destin Daniel Cretton is transitioning from one like sub franchise to another. I think it means that Shang-Chi, after maybe having implications for the rest of the Avenger movies, all of a sudden doesn't really matter. And I feel bad for Simu Liu, but I just think they trust Destin Daniel Cretton and they want to kind of flip the page on Spider-Man.
Yes and no. I agree. Like for Destin Daniel Cretton, DDC, this guy, it's a great
Easier.
pivot. It's a great pivot. It's a huge upgrade. Like it's a huge job promotion. Major. He went from like analyst to senior manager. He skipped manager. I don't know how I don't know how you want to quantify it, but good for him. Okay? But this is just like another hire that's like, oh, like we're comfortable with this guy. He's worked with us before. He's serviceable. Let's put him in here. No, 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 no. I miss the days when Marvel would pick out a James Gunn, would pick out a John Watts after like and say, hey, this guy's done something interesting. Let's bring him into this universe. And you know what? I know it's the MCU, but we can make it work. You know? No, that's not what they're doing now. They're picking guys that they know it's going to work, but they're again going back to a ceiling. It just seems like it's lower because we've seen what this guy's done before. It's not going to be new. I think it's safe. And I don't like that. That's not the Marvel like I used to know.
I don't know if it's going to be safe. I don't think we have enough on the filmography from Destin Daniel Cretton to like know what he's going to do with Spider-Man. I know there's going to be some kick-ass action sequences like we saw in Shang-Chi, but I think John Watts gets a lot of credit when he doesn't really deserve a lot of that credit. Honestly, I think he's an okay director. I don't herald him as a great Marvel director. I really don't,
I would
you
agree with
know.
that.
And I think it's because this is a new chapter, and this is where it's going to be a lot about Spider-Man. There's not going to be a leniency on Iron Man to show up, Tony Stark. There's not going to be a leniency to have Doctor Strange in this movie or a bunch of old Spider-Man characters, right? This is going to be heavy lifting for both Destin Daniel Cretton and Tom Holland. I think this is a huge, huge next chapter for these two. And I just don't think there was really another choice I would have in mind that would be enough to take on this role. Imagine if it was, I don't know if you could do an independent filmmaker for a Spider-Man movie. I don't know if you could do it. Sam Raimi, I think would be awesome if they brought him back, but to be able to be Sam Raimi and also be a part of the MCU doesn't seem like something that can happen. Obviously, what we saw with Multiverse of Madness seemed like we were splitting hairs at that point. You have someone that's actually connected to the MCU that isn't too ingrained in the MCU. He's done Shang-Chi. No one even remembers the goddamn movie. I feel like he
Like
has space to move with Spider-Man.
I guess my point is not necessarily like, oh, we don't really know him besides Shang-Chi. It's more like Marvel picked him because like, oh, this guy is easy to work with and he knows what we want and he's going to be a yes man. That's how it feels to me. I miss the days where, again, Spider-Man, where he's connected to the MCU, but you can do other stuff, especially like if you're going to pick an independent director, like an indie filmmaker, Spider-Man's the one for like the clear choice out of all the MCU superheroes to do that because he's the one guy that's not really yours. So you could still get even more creative, more experimental, and like why not find your next Russo brothers? Why not go find your next Taika Waititi? Why not go find your next James Gunn? It worked throughout the 2010s, your glory era, and now it's like you're playing it safe, just saying, "Oh, we know this guy's gonna work. Let's just take him." That's how it feels to me. But I understand what you're saying. But
I
it's
just
not
don't
necessarily
know.
like what we've seen on film. It's more like behind the scenes where like Marvel's like, oh, we could like pull the strings here. He's gonna listen to us without for thinking of the next 2 Avengers movies related to Spider-Man, this and that. No, I want to see them connect it while also pushing the boundaries, getting edgy, like they did in the 2010s.
To me, I don't think Marvel's thinking like that where it's safe. I think it's
And
like
that's a big problem in the
no,
2020s. That's what I'm
but I'm
saying.
saying they didn't do it just because this guy knows the world. Like this guy, they don't just hand a Avengers movie over to anybody. You know, like that means they believe in the guy. And like
For
if you're
sure.
not doing an Avenger movie, how close is Spider-Man to an Avenger movie? It's pretty goddamn close.
Mm.
And you're going to be able to make your own type of Spider-Man movie, quote unquote, where it's not going to be fantastical. No one knows who Peter Parker is. He's not going to have a sidekick next to him. You can make a grounded Spider-Man movie with a lot of combat. You can probably add characters that you didn't know you were going to be able to add, and you could have a lot of fun with it. And I think they see this guy and they're like, you weren't able to make your Avenger movie. I'm sorry. The Russo brothers said they want to make Secret Wars. You're not going to say no to the Russo brothers. And also, I assume it was because of the Kang Dynasty and the connection to Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings that he was going to be there. They feel like they owe him one, but also I do think they believe in him. Bottom line.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I don't. And again, like I'm coming off on the other side of this. I don't hate it, but I'm like more lukewarm on it. I'm like okay with it. I'm not. I don't like it, but I don't hate it. I'm like okay with it.
You know
There's a
what?
fourth one that you could
I,
pick.
I was trying to think of other directors I would have wanted aside from Destin Daniel Cretton, because if I had to make a list, I wouldn't put him on the list. I wouldn't put anybody on the goddamn list aside from the names I listed because the character's too big. But like if Phil Lord and Chris Miller were done with the Spider-Verse trilogy, I would have been like, let's get those guys to make a Tom Holland movie.
I want
Let's
them to do
get them,
Miles Morales whenever he does go live action
or
though.
they bring Miles Morales into the Peter Parker movie. Like I don't hate that as well, but like I think those guys have earned a shot at a live action Spider-Man, honestly. And they have a lot of chaos going on with the Spider-Verse films. Maybe they want to transition to live action. I don't know, but someone that clearly understands who Spider-Man is maybe would be fitting to take on the role.